thank you everyone for, making your time to attend this Q&A for our cyber leadership program. We realized that there was a lot of inquiries, either via our app or via email or LinkedIn. So it was better to just get everyone together and explain what the cyber leadership program is all about. Starting off with the why. Why did we, come together 3 years ago and found the cyber leadership program? Then I will hand over to Jan, who is one of our co-founders and facilitators of the program, to talk about the nuances of the course. So that's pretty much how we will run this, and then we'll open it up to Q&A towards the end. So let's get into it, Jan. So next slide. Okay, great. So why the cyber leadership program? I thought I would start off by sharing my own career journey. So, when I stepped into my first CISO role or head of cybersecurity about 5 years ago, after having been stuck in functional roles or middle management roles for years, when I started off my career a few years ago, I falsely believed that the technical skills that had made me a superstar in functional roles would guarantee an executive position. But, towards the end of 2014, I started to realize that, those technical competencies were not ideal to help me accelerate into a cyber leadership position or a CISO role. So, I started making a conscious decision to actively, sharpen my business communication, influencing, and persuasion skills, and that helped my career. About 3 years ago, I came up together with Jan, who is on the call, and our other co-founder called Darren Argyle, to co-found the Cyber Leadership Institute. And there were 3 pain areas that we wanted to address. Number one is we realized that there were so many people who were exactly in the same shoes that I was about 5-6 years ago, technically competent. They've been in cybersecurity for 10 to 15 years, but they don't have the formula to crack into CISO position, and let alone gain a standing with the C-suite and the board once they get into those executive positions. So that was number one. The second pain point, when I started off my CISO role, it was very difficult. The journey was lonely. I spent a lot of hours Googling uninspiring policies from universities in America, and there was no support network. So basically what we did is, throughout the cyber leadership program, our objectives are threefold. Number one is we want to equip people with the essential skills, the leadership and executive communication strategy design that they need to excel in CISO roles, but more importantly, to give them the toolkits and the network that they need, to create a global network of 10,000 cyber leaders by 2025 who actively support each other and, help each other, because the CISO role is very challenging. But when we come together, the journey becomes much lighter. So pretty much that's what that was our why. Trying to solve the cybersecurity skills shortage from the top, because we realize that we can only solve this problem if we have got highly capable cyber leaders in those positions. Can we move on to the next slide, Jan? Yeah, so I'll be quick here just to explain who the co-founders are. And, these are the people, if you decide to get into the cyber leadership program, these are the people whom you will, work with. You get one-on-one mentoring with either Darren, Jan, or myself. So I'll start off with Darren, who is one of the top 100 rated CISOs globally by the SC magazine. Is the former CISO for Qantas and many other global brands. He is currently working as the Global Chief Information Risk Officer for Standard Chartered Bank and is based in Singapore. Darren is actually the main leader of the Cyber Leadership Program, closely supported by Jan and myself. Jan and myself, we met at PwC many years ago, where Jan was a partner. So Jan has been with he's a retired partner from PwC, where he was leading the cybersecurity consulting practice across Australia and Switzerland. He was there for 2 years. Jan knows a lot about cybersecurity strategy design and leadership. Having been in the trenches for more than 3 decades. Then myself, I'm the best-selling author of the 5 Anchors of Cyber Resilience. And I also spend a lot of time, for the last 5 years, I've worked as a virtual CISO, helping companies identify their critical blind spots and accelerate their cyber resilience postures. So long story short, the facilitators of the course, we've got a combined 70 plus years in the trenches. The skill sets that we teach are practical. We're not academics. We do this every day. So that's pretty much us. Then we'll move on to the next slide. Yeah. So what is the Cyber Leadership Program? So like I said, we started this journey 3 years ago with a very ambitious goal to develop, cyber leaders, 10,000 cyber leaders by the year 2025. And within the last 2.5 years, where we have been actively promoting the CLP, or the Cyber Leadership Program, we have managed to train, I think, approximately 300 cyber leaders or CISOs from more than 40 countries. So the success of the program has been way beyond our wildest expectations. We have got very senior people who have graduated from, notable brands like the World Economic Forum, HSBC, MTN in Africa, Bupa here, the Australian government, Amazon Web Services, Nike, and the like. So normally we average around 30 to 40 cyber leaders from around 6 to 10 countries in every cohort, which we run every 2 years. So the whole idea here is, once you join the Cyber Leadership Program, you become part of, an elite and closely bonded group of CISOs from, different industry verticals, different ethnicities, and also different geographies, because we believe that we are stronger together. And, in Africa, we got this proverb which say a stick by itself is easy to break, but when you put them in a bundle, it becomes almost impossible. So that's pretty much, why we founded the Cyber Leadership Program. We've got a very ambitious goal. And, like I said, we've already cut across 40 plus countries. I think that's my quick intro. I will hand over to Jan to talk about what the Cyber Leadership Program is all about in much more detail. Over to you, Jan.
Thanks, Phil. So as you probably all know, it's an 8-week program. And in the 8 weeks, we cover a range of different topics. Every one of these topics have been selected basically because it's an executive or leadership skill that you need to be successful as a CISO. We have a bit of a running joke between us that every week we say this week is really important, but the reality is that all of these topics are really important for you in your role as a CISO. We start with, high-level view of what's the role of a CISO. We go through strategy, culture, building a function, stakeholder management, governance, maintaining your resilience, operational excellence, and then looking forward towards the future CISO role. I'll dive into a little bit of detail into those just to give you a bit of a flavor for what's in it. But for those of you who haven't seen it yet, there's also a demo version of the Cyber Leadership Program available in the hub, and you can see some of the sample modules there. But let me just give you some example of some of the topics we cover. So in week 1, and this is led by Darren, who's ideally suited for this, we really talk about, well, Darren tells the story about how he became a CISO, and Darren's had multiple senior CISO roles, but it's not your typical story of, this is how all went well. Darren is very open in this about also the successes, but also the failures and the lessons learned. And in that way, you can learn not only from what's gone well, but you can learn from the things that where he's made mistakes and the advice he's got for someone, if he had his time over, what he would do differently, which I think is really important. One of the important things we do in this first week is to look at how do you find the CISO role? How do you deal with the headhunters? How do you succeed in the interview process? How do you build your personal brand to stand out at the interview? So for anyone we've had a number of people go through the cyber leadership program who have been just at that stage where they were looking for their first CISO role or interviewing for a new CISO role. And every one of them have said this has been invaluable in the process to find that CISO role. Week 2 is led by myself, something I'm really passionate about, developing a high-value cyber resilience strategy. As you probably know, a lot of cybersecurity strategies in organizations are often challenging in the sense that people say we can't get budget, or even if we get the budget, it's difficult to demonstrate the value. So really what we focus on in this week is how do you develop a high-value cyber resilience strategy? So firstly, how do you identify the value that your strategy will bring? And secondly, how do you communicate that value to all the key stakeholders? So not just looking at the normal sort of things about how do we build capabilities, but really what is the value of this as an investment? Because your organization, every organization, the people making decisions at a board or senior executive level about where they invest their money, they have choices, they have options. They can decide whether to invest the money in new facilities, expansion, marketing, or they can invest in cyber. And that investment in cyber or your cyber transformation program has to give a return and has to deliver value to the organization in exactly the same way as any other investment has to. And that's really our focus in week 2. Week 3 is all about building culture. We all talk about culture and awareness, and having security awareness as the first line of defense, having a cyber savvy workforce. This really takes that to the next level to say, how do you drive an enterprise-wide cyber aware culture from board level down all the way through the organization? I won't spoil the surprise, but there's some really good stuff in there. Week 4 is all about how do you build your CISO function. So because you can't do it by yourself, you as the CISO can only be as successful as your team. So the week 4 is spent very much on how do you build your CISO team, how do you position it in the organization, how do you make sure that it's functionally designed to be successful. And again, a lot of Darren's experience of having been in CISO roles in large organizations comes through to the fore there in that discussion. In week 5, and this again part of the joke, is probably one of the most important weeks, and this is about stakeholder management. Really understanding what are your key stakeholders in the organization and how can you manage them effectively, because you all know that cybersecurity is something that spreads across the entire organization. It's not something that just sits in one part of the business. So as a CISO, you could never own all the resources to make the organization cyber resilient. You're dependent on resources in the rest of IT, whether it's IT operations or architecture or engineers, or you're dependent on other people in the business to roll out and adopt the technologies that are being rolled out. So, and then you're also dependent on the senior stakeholders to be able to support the program and not undermine you. So week 5 is all about how do you do that successfully. Week 6 is one of Phil's weeks, which is all about embedding cyber governance. And once again, getting the right governance structure in place is one of the most effective weapons in the arsenal of a CISO to be effective, because that's where you set yourself up for success. to make sure that the accountability for cyber resilience doesn't just sit with you, but sits across the organization, and you have the right focus on it and the right visibility and transparency. A big part of this is also to focus on what are the right metrics that you want to measure, not those sort of vain cybersecurity metrics that no one can do anything with, but what are the actionable security metrics that you want to measure to be able to really give all the stakeholders visibility of where you stand and what you need to do to improve. And also, if there's improvement, to actually be able to measure that. In week 7, we've sort of taken a step further forward in your career as a CISO and talk about what you need to do to maintain the momentum of your cyber transformation. We've seen that so many times with new CISOs joining organizations, getting all excited, getting their budget approved, getting their strategy approved, and all goes well until something happens to derail that entire process, whether that's something happening externally or something happening internally in the organization. And yes, we all know that something will happen. The opportunity here, or the challenge here, is to work out what can you do or what should you do to anticipate that, prepare for it, and be able to respond in a way that maintains your credibility. We've seen too many times, and through my career, I've seen it so many times, that one of those events impacts on the CISO credibility, and then they lose the trust of the executives, and they either lose their job or they just lose their influence in the organization. And then week 8 is a bit of a forward-looking one, where we look at what you need to do to prepare yourself for being a CISO for the longer term, being on top of emerging threats, also engaging with more broadly across the business rather than just focusing on cybersecurity. Because as a CISO, especially if you're at a senior executive type role, yes, you have your role as the functional leader of cyber resilience in the organization, but you also have a role in the organization as someone who has an executive seat at the table. So how do you become an effective leader, not just of cybersecurity, but inside the organization more broadly? So that's the quick overview of the program. Just quickly, in terms of the mechanics of how it works, it's an 8-week program. There are various modules per week. They're all sort of bite-sized chunks. So every module is about 5 to 15 minutes long. So you can, watch it anywhere when you've got a bit of time, whether you on public transport or even if you've got a quick break somewhere. You don't have to sit down and watch hours long of videos. It's self-paced. You can either watch the video or read the transcript, or we've even got MP3 versions you can download and listen as a podcast. In every week, there are some action items, and those action items are really for you to consolidate your learning by implementing it in your organization. So ideally, the best time to do the CLP is if you're actually in a role where you can implement some of the elements of what you're learning every week, and actually get better by doing, because you all know that listening to something is one thing, but you actually learn best by doing. We have weekly Q&A calls, basically an hour per week. We typically run 2 of them to accommodate all the different time zones. So depending on where you are in the world, you might have 1 or 2 options that work for you. But all the calls are also recorded, and the transcripts are posted, so you can review them later on if you do miss a call. We set up a private cohort group in the Cyber Leadership Hub, where the group as a cohort can get together and ask questions and discuss topics of interest. So as a cohort group, that really it's just like going through university or school. You become that class of people together. We've seen even people who've been through cohorts from last year still keeping very close contact with each other through the relationships that they've built as part of that cohort. And then, as Phil said, we have one-on-one coaching sessions with one of the program leaders as you work through the course project, which I'll get to now. This cyber leadership program doesn't have any exams or tests or quizzes or multiple choice questions or anything like that. we only have one mechanism and one mandatory component to demonstrate your ability to apply the knowledge you've gained. And this is what we call the strategy competition. So basically you have to develop a strategy for a fictional organization, and you can base it on an organization that you know well, or you can pick a totally different industry, but create a strategy, cyber resilience strategy for a fictional organization. And you have to produce a board paper, so a board quality briefing paper for the board as pre-reading, plus a strategy deck. And then you get 10 minutes to present your strategy to the board. And typical, like most things these days, it's a video presentation. So you're presenting it as if you're presenting it to the board. And we then select the 3 best video presentations and shortlist them. And in week 8, those 3 selected shortlisted people present their videos live, or present their strategies live to the rest of us. And we then select the winner, and the winner wins a prize, which is actually a really good prize. It's a scholarship to INSEAD to a program called Leadership Communication with Impact. And the value of that program is 1,650 euros. So not, quite a valuable prize for the winner there. And the people who've done that come back and say that's really only enhanced their ability to communicate at that senior level. We issue, or if you successfully complete the course project, you get issued a Credly badge. Most of you would have seen these Credly badges being put on people's LinkedIn profiles, etc. It's the equivalent of the old days, people having certificates on their walls, posting your credentials or your Credly badge on your LinkedIn profile, which is a verifiable badge, so anyone can see it and click on it and verify that it's a valid thing that you've, valid achievement that you've had. There are a few other things, as Phil said at the start. When we designed this training, we designed it so that it's not just training, it's much more than just training. When you sign up for the CLP, you also get access to a whole range of additional resources to help you be successful in your role. Firstly, as part of the CLP, in every module, we've got supporting tools, templates, methodologies to help you implement what we've learned in practice. There's also the one-on-one coaching and mentoring sessions, as I mentioned, but you also have access to that mentoring post the course. So even now, actually in the process of mentoring 2 people who are going through interview process for new roles who did the CLP last year. So that's an ongoing relationship and commitment we have to your success. You also get a copy of Phil's book, The 5 Anchors of Cyber Resilience, if you haven't had the pleasure of reading that before. And then you also get 12 months access to the Cyber Leadership Hub, which is really 2 things. It's a resource library where you've got access to over 500 premium content, practice aids, guides, methodologies, toolkits to do pretty much anything you can think of in cyber that's at a sort of management and process type level. Not technical guides of how to implement MFA in Office 365, but strategic guides, methodologies, approaches, toolkits to be able to do your job as a CISO. And then the collaboration platform, as Phil said, I know many of you are already members of the Hub, but if you're not, check it out. It's and a place where you can ask questions, where you can join some private groups. Most of the action actually happens in private groups where people in small groups discuss topics, etc. And so that's a very important part of what we're providing, is to give you that support network if you have any questions and need any support. And additionally, there's some additional training programs. So as I said, you get 12 months premium membership of the Cyber Leadership Hub included in the price of the CLP. And included in that is access to our Executive Cyber Resilience Program, which is really not focused on CISOs, but focused on business executives. But you get access to it mainly for the objective of being able to use some of those techniques to be able to communicate to your own board or executives. It's really a way of communicating cyber in simple business terms to people. I always call it security awareness on steroids. It's not the don't click on this link type security awareness. It's security awareness for executives. And one of the key components of that is a crisis incident desktop simulation exercise, for example. And you also get a 50% discount off all the other courses in. So if within those 12 months when you're a premium member, you join any of the other courses that we have, you also get a 50% discount off those courses. Might just quickly talk about, I know some of you have had some questions around which course should you attend. And I'm assuming that because of the fact that you are participating in this call this evening, that you're looking at the Cyber Leadership Program, which is really focused on aspiring and emerging cyber leaders. So we've had anyone from new CISOs to CISOs in smaller organizations who want to step up to being a CISO in a large enterprise, to people who are in senior roles, just 1 or 2 levels below the CISO, to even people who are aspiring to become CISOs in 5 to 10 years. It really doesn't matter, if you're in that sort of middle stretch of your career. If you've been a CISO for 10 years in a large organization, it's probably not suitable for you. And if you are still in the first 5 or 6 years of your career, it's probably not suitable for you either. But it's focused on people who want to go beyond being a technical cybersecurity specialist and step up into leadership and executive roles. The Cyber Strategy and Transformation Program, slightly different focus, covers some of the same topics. There's some overlap between it. And as the name says, it's focused on strategy and transformation. So it's got 4 weeks of strategy and 4 weeks of transformation in it. But it's really focused on individuals who are responsible for leading and driving cyber transformation programs across their organizations. So these are the program directors, program managers, workstream leaders, etc. People in the leadership role of cyber transformation programs. In some cases, it may be the CISO, because in some organizations, small organizations, they may not be able to afford a program manager, and the CISO effectively becomes the de facto program manager. But in a large organization with, you might have a whole program structure with a program director and multiple program managers on your cyber strategy and transformation program, and that's really the focus of that one. And again, it's focused on helping cyber programs deliver value to the organization. That's the entire focus of that program. And then Executive Cyber Resilience Program, as I mentioned, is the one that is focused on non-technical, non-IT people or non-cyber people. So we get business executives, board members, chief risk officers, internal auditors, etc., attending that program. So hopefully that sort of covers the different types of programs. But enough from me. Probably the best way to understand the CLP and what it can do for you is to listen to what one of our previous participants has said about it. And so we've got a short video here from Sarah Hassan, who's one of our CLP alumni. And it's definitely worth listening to it because it'll give you a good perspective on what the CLP can do for you in your career.
I'm delighted to come here and talk to you all about my career journey.
Just checking, can you hear that sound or not?
Yeah, we can.
And I hope that you find it interesting and also inspiring whilst you're on your own career trajectory in the cybersecurity landscape. We're all on this winding road together, I think, to a certain degree, and can all learn and share from one another. So I really hope that you find my experiences interesting and can learn from them. And I'm always here to, answer any questions as well. I'm on the CLI chat group and also available on LinkedIn as well. I started my career in banking, so I joined the Graduate Technology Leadership Program at Merrill Lynch. Merrill Lynch was then taken over by Bank of America. So just to give you an understanding of the scale of the type of organisation that I had spent 17 years in, it's about 250,000 employees. It had about 2,500 employees in the information security function. And we had at the time about a $650 million budget. And I think it's probably at about $1 billion now, because I haven't been in that space for a few years. And some of the key risks that we were dealing with were things like distributed denial of service from Iran in response to Stuxnet, and of course the advanced persistent threat. In my last key role at Bank of America, I was the global head of forensics. So I was one of the key critical control owners based out of the UK, which is quite unusual because it's an American-based institution. And I was responsible for 32 investigators around the globe and responsible for about 2,000 incidents and investigations. And what that did is it gave me a great degree of experience across the entire landscape of information security, because when you're running 2,000 incidents a year, an incident and an investigation could span any element of information security. It could be a control failure, it could be absence of a control, it could be fraudulent, it could be a vulnerability, it could be an advanced attack. So from a functional standpoint, I had some very good leadership experience. I was also really lucky to experience a new CISO coming into the organisation, and they got Booz Allen Hamilton into Bank of America to completely define the new cybersecurity strategy. And they aligned our program against the NIST framework and the 5 chevrons that were part of NIST at the time. So I had some very good functional leadership, and I knew what good looked like in terms of a very mature information security program. I continued to work, but I had a couple of kids, and I was really lucky because at that point I was a global leader, and I got married, and I've got 2 young boys who are 4 and 6 now. And it soon became unsustainable for me to undertake this global function whilst I had 2 young children. And I mention this because I'm sure there are many female leaders out there who are wondering how they're going to fit it all in. And you may learn from my experience. So I took maternity leave. I had a couple of kids. I stayed in the role for a bit. It became very difficult. And so I then made the decision to just exit and take a pause. I didn't take a career break. I actually very quickly landed in the insurance sector in the UK. And anyone that's familiar with the insurance sector will know that they're about 15 years behind in terms of information security maturity. But the great thing about being in the insurance space was that I got a lot of a very siloed specialist in the forensic space. And I was able to operate across all elements of the cybersecurity program. So I operated as a consultant, a freelance consultant for 3 years across 3 really good, significant, sizable insurance organisations. And in my last role, I was the deputy CISO for a motor insurance company. So I was on track to becoming a CISO. And of course, because I had deputy CISO in my profile, I was starting to get a fair amount of interest in the job market. My mentor then called me up and said, "Sarah, what are you doing?" And I think this is really a very useful learning, because sometimes there are catalysts in your career that help you to understand where you're at and perhaps prompt you to challenge yourself a little bit. So he phoned me up and he said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Oh, I'm just bouncing around in the insurance industry. I'm really liking it. It's great. I'm a freelance. Everybody values me. I'm earning loads." And he said, "You need to get back in the game at some point. You cannot float around for the next few years." So he really challenged me to start attending some interviews for head of security type roles and some CISO roles. And so I think I attended 5 or 6 interviews across different companies. And to be quite honest, I was fumbling around. I didn't really know how to articulate myself as a leader. I could express that I was very good at understanding what good looked like from a security standpoint in terms of functional elements of the program, but I couldn't articulate how I could come into an organization, embed my values and beliefs, and create a cyber resilient program that enabled the company to operate within risk appetite. I was just fumbling around, okay, and getting somewhat frustrated. So the rejection started to come through, and I was getting comments like, she's great, we really like her, but she's about a year away from this. And we just don't think she's ready yet. So I took a step back and I thought, right, I'm done with interviews. I'm just going to speak to a few of my mentors and figure it out. So I was on pause in my mind, and I then got called up for another opportunity, and I was very hesitant to go for that. At the same time that I had been called up for this opportunity, an ex-colleague of mine had posted on LinkedIn that she had attended the Cyber Leadership Institute program and really enjoyed it. So I took a look at it and I just thought, fantastic, this is exactly what I need. You've got 3 founders here who have a wealth of experience. There's a network, there's training. I hadn't necessarily invested in my training in the time that I had been a consultant, so it's a really good opportunity to develop myself. So I immediately signed up, and I was being called up for interviews for this new opportunity. So before the course had even started, I started drilling into module 2, which covers interview tips. So I went straight into that, and it's a 17-minute video, I think, hosted by Darren. And it gave me everything I needed to get through the first 2 rounds of my interviews. I think Darren articulated that you need to demonstrate that you're a well-rounded leader, that you're an agile thinker, that you can influence and persuade, all the things that I wasn't doing in the interview. So I went in there and I nailed the first 2 interviews. They then put me through another 3 rounds of interviews. So I then started to drill into what a good cyber resilience strategy looks like. So all of the prep work that Jan had given us for the project. And I learned the lingo. I learned about talking about risk appetite, operating within it, residual inherent risk, reducing your risk profile, making sure that the board is comfortable, elevating risks, all of that, it was an education for me. And in that time, I nailed the next 2 interviews. And in the 5th interview, I just hit them with my 100-day plan. And I think by that point, I had a lot of credibility, and they felt that I could come in and hit the ground running. And I think I wiped the floor with the competition. And so, I'm really pleased to say that I got the CISO role. So I'm now in a fintech startup in the crypto asset space, and we don't have anything in our space at the moment, so I'm building it up from scratch. So I think that's just my story of how CLI has helped me to get the job. So one of the modules covers reporting lines, how you should, in order to be successful, you should be within the right reporting stream. So because I've got that knowledge now, I'm able to influence and persuade to get the best reporting line, as in reporting to the person that gets it the most. So I'm pleased to say I'm reporting into the CEO. So that I think is a big win for the security program, because he totally gets it, and I'm getting all the attention and investment that we need. I've also learned how to build a cyber savvy workforce. So we're a very small company, but we use Slack, and within the Slack channel, on my second day, I set up a soundbite, cybersecurity soundbites channel, and every day I hit them with something new and interesting. So I'm keeping them engaged and interested every day. And we've had phishing simulations. We haven't really done our official training, but I'm pleased to say no one's tripping on some very good simulations. And on my first day, I was asked to present to the board. Okay, this was within 15 minutes of me joining the company. So I presented my project to them, and I said, this is all academic, but it demonstrates my thinking. And it blew them away. They were like, this leader gets it. She understands how we're going to reduce our risk profile and what our control design is going to look like. And instantly, I just got recognition, and the chief risk officer phoned me up afterwards and said, that's the best risk meeting we've had in the 5 months that I've been here, and I'm extremely comfortable with how you are going to build this program. And then just other things that are really helping me out is just the premium content. We are starting from zero. So every time the CEO comes to me and says, you need to create a third-party risk management program, I just go drilling into the blueprints. We do use Microsoft 365 for the add-ons. I mean, there's just so much content there. It's enabled me to hit the ground running. I also don't have a threat intelligence capability at the moment, so I'm using the feeds actively. So I've got a single point to go to instead of trying to collect information from multiple sources. So that's really invaluable. The piece I haven't put there is about the network. So there are people in this space who have mentored me. I know Etienne was a key inspiration to me because he won the competition in the last round and really advised me on how to create good strategy. Magda Celli is someone I've worked with in the past who also advises me. So the network's been invaluable. And in terms of what's next, I think I'm keen to get a grip on the transformation program so that I'm operating my strategy in line with best practice and build my own brand as a leader. So for me, the Cyber Leadership Institute is effectively has changed my career trajectory to a certain degree. It's helped me out tremendously and it continues to be a great support. So I hope that you found this useful and I hope it continues to inspire you and help you to understand that with the right tools and support that you can do it too. I'm delighted to come here.
Okay, so that's been a pretty inspiring video when I first saw it, and when I look at it again, it's also always good to see our alumni be successful and also think that we've played a small part in that. Well, I think we can stop sharing the screen now and move to Q&A. So hopefully if you have been following along and see we've grown. Apologies if my cursor has moved across the video a few times, but it was to admit new people all the time. We open for questions now. You can also, just while we go, also ask questions in the chat because that's sometimes the quickest way to get your question out there. And we'll try and address them all. If we don't get to all the questions, then we will respond to you individually afterwards, or we can also continue the discussion in the hub. Under this event, there's a section for comments, etc. So we can continue there as well. Or alternatively, you can just reach out to Phil or myself or to Kat, who's on the call here as well, with any specific questions. So let's throw it up, and who wants to start with a question?
Hey, Jan, thanks. This is Ray Vincent from Bangalore, India. Can you hear me? Is my voice audible? Yeah,
it's good. Thanks, Ray.
Yeah. So for me, I work for a cybersecurity company, but I'm having a sales career, and I want to become a trusted advisor to the CISOs, the C-level people, to sell cybersecurity products and to guide them on the cybersecurity journey. Do you think this program will suit a person like me?
Yeah, interestingly, we've had a few people in a similar position who've done the course. We didn't initially intend the course for that purpose, but we've had quite a few people come through the course exactly with that objective in mind, to become a better consultant, to get in the minds of the CISO, understand what a CISO's challenges are, and to be able to then engage with them and sell to them. So one of our very active members, Ashwin Ram, always said, I thought I was relevant to the CISOs before, but I've really now learned to be relevant to CISOs. So definitely in that situation, if you're a consultant, or even if you, in like in Ashwin's case, if you're with a vendor trying to sell cybersecurity solutions to CISOs, it's also a good way to understand, even though you're not going to necessarily apply what you've learned directly in your day-to-day role, but when you're talking to CISOs in terms of trying to help them, it'll definitely help you.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Hey, hi Jan, this is JP, so from Hong Kong.
Hi, JP.
So yeah, hi. So nice to meet you. So thanks for arranging this session. So I'm part of a cyber world. So started my career with cybersecurity. So closely having 8 years of experience.
Yep.
So would this program is suitable for me? So to take up at this stage of experience?
Yeah, again, initially we didn't think that. We initially only said you need at least 10 years of cybersecurity experience to do the course. but we've now subsequently had people with quite a lot less experience. At the end of the day, you can be a leader at a very young age by taking leadership. And so you don't need to, it's not about years, it's about your attitude, and it's about whether you want to be a leader. And I think, we've had, I think one of our most inspiring CLP graduates is only, how old is Diana, 25 years old or something like that?
24, 25, yep.
Yeah. So, and it really is just, depends on you as a person, if that's what you want to do, if you want to move your career to become a leader rather than just be a technical specialist, then this course is for you.
Yeah, so because somewhere you mentioned during your session, so that the course, whatever we are learning, so by doing is also needed, right? So I don't, I'm pretty sure, right? I don't get that, the doing options, I can't implement that strategy or other things. But I'm doing the risk assessments for all the applications before go live, all the business applications, like a BISO role.
Yeah, there's some elements you may not be in a position to apply in practice. That's why we have the course project, so you can, especially the strategy, because even Darren said he doesn't get to do a strategy every day, because once the strategy is set for in his CISA role, it's there for 3 years. It's, a few people like me who've lived as a consultant who can say I've done lots of strategies, but most people get occasional opportunities to do strategy. That's really why we practice it. But the principles in there, and it's not just about strategy, all the things that you're learning about governance, stakeholder management, communication, doing presentations to senior members of staff, all those sort of things, somewhere you will get the opportunity to practice some of those aspects. So you may not get all of them, but you will definitely get opportunity to do some of them.
Sure, yeah, thank you.
So can I add one more thing there, JP? So the whole idea for the Cyber Leadership Institute is to help people accelerate then that's the key word, back in the day, you needed, the chronology of your CV would get you a CISO role that I was 20 years somewhere. The times are different. It comes down to your attitude. So the biggest benefit that you will get if you come in at a much lower level in terms of rank is you don't just learn from Jan, Darren, and myself. You learn from the entire cohort. So, people, like I say, a lot of people in there, 15, 25 years in cybersecurity. So, not being the biggest fish in the pond, I think for me, it's a great thing. You learn a lot from people who are experienced, who are in the trench. So the network itself, it's invaluable. I think that's one key takeaway.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Right. Anyone else? Do we have any questions in the chat? No, we don't.
Hello. Hi. Can you hear me?
Hi, is that Vibol? Yes.
Yeah. I'm Vibol for sure. I'm from Cambodia. I'm working for a bank for over 10 years already. I've been moving around from IT to digital transformation and project, and with Viva now I'm back to cyber to build a cyber team here. So actually I joined cybersecurity for 1 year, and then I got be in charge it, and then the bank sponsored me for the CISO and the ISO 87001 lead implementer. So how is it compared between the CLP between those two, or next year do I need to pursue on that, or how do I compare with that? If I request my bank to join the CLP, so any family benefit of that, can I tell my bank to build that? Because actually on the 2022 I also got the program as well, but to make sure whether I change to CLP or what. Yep. Thank you.
Yeah, so that's a question that comes up often, and those are all valuable certifications and qualifications, but that's where Phil started this call initially. Most of those certifications tell you functionally how to do the job, how to do the role as CISO. So it goes through all the functional things that you need to do. But you all know that to be successful, well, firstly, to get a senior leadership role and to be successful in it takes a lot more than just the functional aspects of the role. In fact, for most senior leaders, the functional aspect of the role becomes less and less important. You ask any CFO, they say, you know, I don't do a lot of finance stuff day to day. I've got a team doing it. I do communication, influencing, stakeholder management, strategies, talking to external stakeholders. That's my day-to-day job. And that's really what we're focusing on, is those leadership and executive skills that help you firstly get those senior roles, and secondly, be successful in them. I've also seen, and you probably see that in your organization as well, so often, you know, in IT or senior technical people, cybersecurity people go up, and then they might be the next logical person for a role, but they don't get that senior role because they're not seen as having those executive skills. And someone sometimes with less IT experience or less cybersecurity experience get put in on top of them to manage them because they have those leadership skills. So we don't teach those functional skills. That's something that, you know, you've built up through your career. And as you rightly say, most people on this call would have done lots of those types of certifications. What we teach is how do you apply those? How do you build on those skills? But how do you expand and build the executive and leadership skills that you need to be successful as a senior leader in the organization? If that makes sense.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, we've got about
Jan?
5 minutes. Yep, so jump in.
No, I was going to say, if there's no additional questions, do you mind just explaining the timing of the next CLP that starts on Monday, how we run that over Christmas, and the logistics around it?
Yeah, so typically we do these programs 8 consecutive weeks, but for this one, because of Christmas, we take a break. So we have 3 weeks and then we take a break. So it's, I think, the 16th of December or something like that. Take a break for 3 weeks and then we restart again. So for those of you concerned it might impact on your Christmas holidays, don't be too concerned about that. For those of you who do want to use the Christmas holidays to study, that's I've heard from people as well to say, oh, I'm taking holidays over Christmas and I want to spend some of that time to study. That's also an opportunity to get ahead. But that's the program. So we'll run the calls starting next week, and then as I said, we run 2 calls per week. So trying to accommodate all the different time zones. So you should have one that's at least at a reasonable time in your time zone. And then we, as I said, 3 weeks, then the 3-week break, and then we start again in January. Yeah, and then the next one, I just saw Joe's comment there in the chat. The next one will start in early February. I can't remember the exact date, but we can publish it now. But I think it's either the 7th or the 14th of February as the next start date. We have the 3 courses that we're running start at different consecutive weeks from 31 January, 7 February, 14 February. I think this one might be 14th of February start date.
Yeah. Okay, great. So, you know, if you're keen to jump on the next CLP, feel free to reach out to Jan, Darren, Kat, or myself. We are ready. And the 2 last questions that normally come is, what if I, you know, start doing the CLP and something comes up at work or in life? You just send a note to Darren, Jan, or myself, and we can re-enroll you into the next class. I think the flexibility, you know, we're not like a typical business school. We can accommodate that. So, and if you don't like the course in the first few weeks, you just let us know. You tier your invoice, and we give you all your money. So we back this up because, number one, you know, these are the skill sets that we use every day. And also, feel free to reach out to any of our 300 alumni, and they will share their experiences. One of them, Jessica, is here on the call. Hi, Jessica. So feel free to check out with other people. So yeah, thank you so much for coming. Really appreciate your time, and looking forward to continued collaboration, whether you join the course or not. Let's collaborate on the app or on LinkedIn, and yeah, feel free to reach out if you want to ask anything around career to Jan, myself, and Darren.
Yes, please. And if you're not a member of the Hub yet, then please sign up and join us on the Hub. The free membership is available to anyone. And as Phil said, reach out anytime with any question you might have about your career or cybersecurity, or you just want to catch up and have a chat. And if you're based in Sydney, we're going to have a catch up. When is it? 2 weeks time, Phil?
Yep, 2 weeks time, 2nd of December.
Face to face for the first time since the lockdown.
Yeah.
Thanks very much, everyone.
All right, take care, everyone. Good night, good day, wherever you are.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Cheers.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you. Bye.